Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with my full review of the CRKT Seismic. I did feature this in a little first impressions video a couple weeks ago, or something like that ago. Spent some more time with it now, feel more comfortable to do the full review on it. This is a very new and unique and interesting design from CRKT. It is a Flavio Icoma design. If you have ever heard that name before, it's because the IKBS bearings that this has, he's part of that. So that's cool. It is what they call the Deadbolt Lock is the new most interesting feature of this knife. What the Deadbolt Lock is it looks kind of like a button lock, except for that it's in the middle of the pivot instead of being a button down here. Operates kind of like a button lock, but probably a bit more secure. It has this little metal tang on the other side. What happens is there's two little metal tabs inside there that go down inside the blade. Both of them sit inside the blade when closed. That means that in order for the blade to fail, for the lock to fail, you would have to snap both of those off. And this is hardened steel. I would think probably the blade would fail before that would happen. It appears to be a very strong lock. There's just one simple little spiral spring on the inside here to help the lock pop back. As you can see, that moves. And with running on bearings, it actually is pretty fun to play with, I do have to say. And it works pretty well. We'll talk a bit more about that. There's a little bit of stick there I couldn't get rid of, but other than that, it's been pretty cool. It is pretty neat. It does have thumb studs also. We'll get on those details later, but this is a large knife for sure. Let's get into its largeness right off the bat. I'm going to do some stats and size comparisons. Overall length of 9.1 inches. You have a blade length of 4 inches. Some sites claim 3.7. That they must be measuring the cutting edge. That is a 4-inch blade all day long, if not a tick over, depending on how your police officer wants to measure it. You have a blade thickness of 0.14 inches, so not terribly thick blade stock, but not terribly thin either. Handle thickness of 0.60, and a weight pretty hefty 6.3 ounces. That's not insane for a 4-inch knife, but it's definitely not a lightweight. I wouldn't put it that way. Do a few size comparisons. We will start out with one of our larger knives here. Your Ontario Rat Model 1. We will do your, then we'll go to some of our standards here, I guess, next. The Spyderco Paramilitary 2. You can see it's bigger than both of them. Those are both very large knives. Your Kershaw Bare Knuckle. Then just go with one of the knives that I think is the biggest knife that I regularly carry around. Would be the ZT 0562 Tie. Yeah, dwarfs even that. It's a big sucker for sure. And before I go any farther, have to address one thing. The price is pretty big too. These are like $120. That's a lot for a CRKT. You're getting into, paramilitary 2 territory at that, and that's a competitive place to be for absolutely sure. It really and truly is. But I do like the look of it. It's a bit techno-futuristic-y, not techno like the Spyderco model, but just kind of, technical looking. The blade has a bit of a sweep to it. I'm not as much of a fan of that, but they did a cool little thing on the lock ring. Right? It's got all the details you'd expect on a knife this expensive. Aluminum backspacer, G10, but the G10 doesn't feel quite as nice as some other stuff. As like a Spyderco G10 or anything like that. It's just not quite there. It's fine, but it's not quite there. There's a few little sharp edges here and there. Little bitty pocket clip, I guess, with the design. Yeah, somebody pointed out in the unboxing video, oh, you like lanyard holes? You got 2 lanyard holes. You put a lanyard hole in your lanyard hole. I don't dislike the looks of it, but I said up close there are a few little details that I was hoping would be a bit nicer. Talk about the blade on this. 1.4116 steel, which is, I'll be charitable and call that an interesting choice. I had this steel from CRKT on the Voss. That was one of the field strip technology knives. That thing I think was $60, $70. I didn't mind it on that. It's a German steel. It's not awesome. I'm just gonna say it's pretty generic stainless steel. It's like it's better than 8CR probably in my experience, but not dramatically so. And for $120, that's an odd choice. I will say I did cut some cardboard and stuff to test this, and it held an edge. Okay, it wasn't amazing. I never got it down to being fully dull because I know I'm not going to be keeping this, so I didn't want to completely change the edge. I got it down to where I had to run some ceramic rods, touch it up, and it was fine. It's not good, but it's fine. It is extremely stainless. It does have that going for it. It is an extremely stainless steel. But the other thing that hurts this blade is it's 40 thousandths behind the edge, which is just ridiculous thick. It is a very tall edge, and I think that's what helps it actually still keep cutting fairly well. But that, along with, 0.14 inch blade stock, a year ago we wouldn't have called that thick blade stock, but everybody now is going down to 0.12 for almost everything that's EDC intended. And maybe this isn't really EDC intended because it is gigantic, but it cuts fine. It does have an extremely good, if you want a good piercer, yeah, that's a tip and a half on that sucker for sure. You're not going to snap that tip off unless you're doing something extremely stupid. But so the blade on it doesn't blow me away. I would have thought for this price, CRKT, I do believe has done some stuff in S30V before. I would expect to see that for 120 or for this to be cheaper. As far as the ergonomics go, they're pretty good. Nothing mind-blowing, like I said. There's a few edges that they're not sharp, they're not painful, but you're always aware of all the contours on this knife for sure. The jimping's in a very good spot. You can choke up on it, which is nice because it's such a big blade. You're going to want to. This jimping back here works very functional. The jimping on the back spacer to hold it in your hand. It's definitely, especially if you're using this for more, kind of tactical type purposes, you're going to appreciate all that stuff. And I can't really complain much about the handle shape. I don't think I would really change that. Like I said, I would just finish off these edges a bit more. Carry-wise, it carries shockingly well for how big it is. I will say that. The pocket clip is small though, and for a 6.3 ounce knife, it was never a problem while carrying it. But yeah, it's fairly thin or fairly slim, in the pocket. You get your hand right by it. The only thing I don't feel that flipper tab at all when I go by it. It's got a pretty small flipper tab. You do feel this just a tiny bit, the jimping on the back spacer again. You feel it a little bit when you go by, but it's not like a horribly annoying thing. Deployment. This does have an adjustable detent, which is a very unique feature that you don't see very much at all, and I do really like that because I did do some dialing in. It took me a few tries to get it exactly where I want it, but now I did. I kind of have this screw. It's a little T6 you stick in there, and you can adjust the detent. I've got it about halfway, and it works great. It is really fun to play with. I wouldn't put it quite with like Benchmade Axis Lock or Protect Button Lock fidgetability factor, but it ain't far off. It ain't far off, definitely. The only problem I have with it really is there is a bit of lock stick, button stick, I guess you'd call it, and that's a bit annoying. But you can dial the detent into wherever you want. The only thing I will say is if you crank it all the way up, which is kind of what I would like to have it cranked all the way up at, this flipper tab is just not big enough and does not have enough jimping to catch. So when I had it cranked all the way up, I would occasionally slip off the flipper tab before it deployed. When you crank it back a little bit, you don't get quite as much snap. You get just as much snap, but you can fail it. And also, you got to get your finger out of the way when it goes through because it'll come back and hit. It doesn't hurt or anything, obviously, because it's not moving very fast. But you can kind of stop your own flip. So I do wish the flipper tab was a bit bigger. I never say that, but I do wish it was either bigger or probably even better yet, just more jimping on it down here. It does light switch, it does push button, all those things. Push button maybe even be better because you're less likely, it seems, to hit your finger when that comes by. But what are my overall feelings on this $120 knife? I say that first because that is the most important stat on this knife, I think. That's a lot of money. And not just for a CRKT. Like, that's just a lot of money. CRKT is known, though, for a lot less expensive things. What I think the thing I like the Deadbolt Lock. I think that's a very cool innovation. I do really like the Deadbolt Lock. I hope to see it on more, and they say it's going to be on more. They say it's going to be on lots of their knives coming out soon, and I'm looking forward to that because I don't understand why they debuted it on this knife because it is gigantic. And I'm sorry, for a folding knife, this is big, and this is going to be a very limited market. Maybe they only wanted a few people to try it out and see how it works, so they intentionally released it on a knife that has somewhat limited appeal. I would have much rather seen this on a 3.5-inch knife. A 3.5-inch knife of this same version of this exact same knife with better steel. D2 even would have been fine. The CRKT does a lot of D2 now. Yeah, make it in D2 and a 3.5-inch version for $90, and I'd be happy as a clam. But 120 for 1.4116 and a huge knife that not nearly as many people are going to want. Yeah, I don't really get that. I am very excited for this lock. I think Coleman did a very good job with the lock design. Like I said, this one's a little sticky, but it's one of the absolute first of the absolute first. So I really have faith that they're going to figure that out. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I don't get the size choice for your first one, and the price is pretty high. I did see when this first came out, a couple of people told me that no, they're $80 on Amazon. I did see that for a few minutes. I don't see that anymore. I searched like crazy. I'm actually pricing this one out for a sale, so I can't find them for that anymore. So I think that was a glitch when they first came out. I think some people had them mispriced. They are $120 everywhere I can find them. So if they're 80, then I revise my opinion, and this is just meh. If I would still be meh on at $80. I wouldn't give it a rave review, but at 120, I'm a kind of a no. It's some cool designs, and if you are a CRKT collector, which yes, there are a lot of those, and you want the first of this Deadbolt Lock that apparently is going to be in a lot of knives, and you want to say I had the first of the Deadbolt Lock models, then get it. But as far as just a real like user, there's a lot more options at 120 than this, even in this size. Go buy a Cold Steel Recon or a Cold Steel Voyager or something like that. It's not going to have the cool funky lock, but I think it's be a better user. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.